Hey.
Hello.
You're listening to another episode of I Didn't Know That I Was Pregnant Until I Sat on the Toilet.
Oh my God.
Starring me, Anatoly Mofskin.
Oh my God. You're listening to another episode of I Didn't Know I Was Kidnapped. Starring me.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
All right.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. We're at the Bizarre Buffet headquarters right now.
We are.
And,
And I still have Jack Kevorkian over my head.
Yep.
Yeah.
For those of you who listened to our episode about Nicolas Cage. And Mark, you actually had a friend that went and visited it, right? And sent you a picture.
Yeah.
Right after we fucking recorded.
And then I was like, hey, we just did an episode about that pyramid thing. Here's a preview photo of our art, but please do not share it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he
So
abided.
listen.
So thank you.
Yeah, so we did not have to send a cease and desist letter from the Bizarre
Not at
Buffet
all.
lawyer, Gonk.
Gonk.
Gonk
Who
the
Mark
dog.
is
Yeah, he does our legal
currently
work.
cradling right now and rocking to sleep
That's right.
because he's being a little scutch.
That's right. He's a little scotch and birthed him.
So, double recording tonight. I always call it the Wilson Torriello night.
The Wilson Torriello night. That's right. I'm off. I'm off the clock.
So, Mark, what are we talking about tonight?
I switched my outfit again.
I know, you did.
Now I'm wearing a beautiful Saint Laurent motorcycle jacket.
Oh,
That's
she's so horny.
from Eddie Slimane, and it.
And I'm still in my
okay.
vintage tie-dye
But
hoodie and my
At
red
least
beanie.
At least
adorable.
it's not digging into your armpits so much that you think you're gonna die.
Yeah, and I changed my outfit. I'm wearing a Shih Tzu.
You are. It's gone.
It's all the rage in France.
Paris Fashion Week.
Tzus on the runway.
Yes. That's
Pause
all
on the runway.
in.
Pause
all
on
in
the
this
runway.
season.
Oh my God.
Let's get into this. What is a candy that you fucking hate?
I don't know what you call them, but they're the ones that they're the dots on the paper, and they're
those
like
are weird.
different colors.
I think they're called
No,
dots.
They're like the
no.
little sugar tiny
Yeah.
dots,
And it's on like a
on a big
paper.
Yeah,
It's like a receipt.
yeah. Those are.
Oh wait, those aren't dots.
They're
I love
not
dots.
Yeah,
But
no.
they're
something-
something I don't know, but they do look like dots. But you know what I'm talking about? They're like blue and
Yeah.
pink and
Yes.
the yellow.
You could only get them at like the last existing real candy shops. You can't
Yeah.
actually find them in real life.
But I think we used to call them airplane candy.
Airplane.
I don't know
candy?
why.
What
but,
airplane
like,
has those candies?
I
on
don't
them?
know. Maybe it was something you could get at airports or
Maybe
something.
the airplane Julianne
I also am
Kolapke
not a
flew
fan
on.
of.
yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of sugar daddies.
I mean, I know what sugar daddies are,
Well,
but I
know-
mean,
yeah,
like, you know.
they're like literally sugar in a cube. Like it just.
You know what I fucking hate? Whoppers, the most disgusting
The
candy.
texture, it's like
It's the texture because like when you bite into it, it's like
Oh, it's like sandpaper sugar.
yeah.
It's very weird.
yeah,
Oh,
something
and
nasty.
like peanut brittle.
Ew, so gross. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nasty. Sorry to our peanut brittle lovers.
Yeah.
And sugar daddy dot.
It's each their own.
Yeah.
You know what I find interesting? A lot of like older people from the boomer generation, they love black licorice.
I can go for some black licorice here or there, but
Sorry,
it's
Mom.
more like
She loves that shit.
my mom does too.
Yeah.
It's supposed to help if you're constipated.
Oh,
It's supposed to help you
Well,
poop.
then I should eat the whole fucking tin.
You should.
I'm gonna black licorice it up.
One thing I don't understand is why everyone loves the damn pink Starburst. I think they are the most.
Oh no.
Okay,
Like, they're
all right.
terrible.
Okay,
I love the
but
yellow ones.
listen.
They're the
Me too.
best.
Open up 2 Starbursts, whichever flavors you want. I personally prefer the red and the pink. And you put them both in your mouth at the same time, and it's like a flavor explosion. It's so good.
I love a flavor explosion in my mouth.
What if I told you that one of the fundamental ingredients in candy is responsible for a flood that killed 21 people and injured over 150?
Wow! What?
Wow, didn't see that coming.
Oh, whoop-a-cha. Whoop-a-cha with the candy.
Whoop-cha, yeah, hit in the face with a Mary Jane. Whoop-ha!
Whoop-a, right in the teeth.
And black licorice. Ha-cha.
So do you guys want to know how this happened?
Yes, I want to hear about the flood.
Oh, flood me.
So let me paint the picture, and then we're going to talk about how it happened. We're going to go to January 15th, 1919, we're going to Boston, Massachusetts.
You always take us way, way back. I know.
yeah.
It's great.
There's going to be a time where, like, I take us into the future.
The Titanic had just been a few years sunk.
It's been a few years.
Titanic still had the paint on it.
Yeah.
It's like 1919. It's Boston, Massachusetts. There is a huge storage tank full of molasses. It was owned by the Purity Distillery Company. One day, this huge ass tank just exploded. It burst.
A tank of molasses.
Correct.
So you're saying that molasses caused a flood that killed
Yes.
how many people? 21?
21.
So molasses is responsible for killing 21 people.
Molasses is a
Because-
And
murderer.
injuring how many?
150.
150.
So this is actually a brief moment in history. It's called the Great Molasses Flood.
I'm sorry. It's bizarre buffet.
It
It's
is.
terrible, but also the context is kind of funny. And it listen, it fucking fits in the damn bizarre buffet universe.
does.
That's why,
It
it's a good
does.
topic. This tank was owned by a company called the Purity Distillery Company.
Okay.
The molasses flooded the neighborhood surrounding the tank, crushing buildings, cars, horse carriages, because it was 1919,
Yeah.
and also smothering many people to death.
But I'm just thinking, like, how did you lose your home? Molasses.
Molasses
did
yeah.
it.
We lost it to the molasses.
How did you lose your family? Molasses.
Well, before we get into the sweet details of this bizarre and catastrophic event, ha ha ha,
Sweet details.
Sweet dreams.
I want to really walk you through how this happened and what molasses actually is.
Oh.
So when I was doing like my research on this, there was some articles out there. There were some other YouTube videos that were really well done, but a lot of them took this like scientific / chemistry approach,
Okay.
which is not for me. And that's not like the bizarre buffet
Our
universe.
listeners don't want that shit.
Yeah, like,
No, we
listen,
were just talking about that. Like when we talk about killers, we don't need to talk about like when they were born in their childhood. We
Yeah.
want the nitty gritty
Gritty.
fucking
Yes,
details.
The important good stuff.
Yeah, and the good stuff happens to be molasses. Molasses is a viscose substance resulting from refining sugarcane into actual sugar. Sugarcane molasses is primarily used to sweeten and add flavor to food. It's also a primary ingredient for alcohol, such as distilled rum. Molasses has like a lot of uses for like the good shit.
So you're gonna like explain to us that fucking saying that you hear people go, "Oh, you're slower than molasses."
They're going to be kicking themselves when I talk about how fast this molasses tidal wave traveled, because it fucking does. So once this liquid is boiled, it crystallizes and then becomes sugar. So
Okay.
even George Washington published a recipe on how to make molasses beer.
Oh,
They also use molasses for gingerbread cookies. So every time you bite into a gingerbread cookie, think about everyone
think
that
about
died.
21 people who were killed and 150 injured in the 1919 molasses flood.
Don't eat molasses products in Boston. It's
Please
rude.
don't. No.
You might get a crime against you.
It's like a thick ass blobby syrup.
Yeah, it's, I don't
very
like
dense.
the taste of it.
I don't think I've ever really tasted it. I mean, I've had things that had it in there, but I'm not like, ooh, molasses.
Oh, molasses
I gotta-
Wilson.
Like, ooh.
I feel like having molasses.
I
Yeah.
feel like having a teaspoon of honey. Like, no.
I feel like I've had a teaspoon of molasses.
Now we know a little bit about molasses. Let's talk about the Purity Distilling Company and the tank itself, because
Hell yeah.
this tank is huge and quite flawed. The Purity Distilling Company was a chemical firm based in Boston, Massachusetts, and they also specialized in the production of ethanol, which is, I guess, a gas.
Cool.
Yep.
That's
And-
like moonshine.
Yeah, exactly. This tank, it was huge. It was 50 feet high, 90 feet across. The circumference was about 283 feet all around.
I'm not good about math, but
Molasses.
I'm assuming it's a lot of molasses.
It's big. It actually holds 2 million gallons of molasses.
What the fuck?
That's a lot of molasses.
Yeah. They specifically used that molasses for two things: alcohol production and explosives.
Why does your explosives need to be sweet?
That's where I like glaze over.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know about
Maybe.
chemistry. There are several different factors that could have really been the root of this disaster. First of all, the construction of the actual tank is probably the biggest factor as to like how this shit went down.
Was it made out of like tin foil and
Glue.
Literally
And glue.
like tinfoil and glue.
and stapled together
Yes.
I don't even think
with
they had
construction
tables back then.
with construction paper?
Yeah, paper mache.
Well, the tank, now allegedly the tank began to leak molasses the very first day it was filled.
Stop.
How many gallons was it again?
It could hold 2 million
So
gallons.
it was literally like the 2 million gallons of molasses was slowly seeping out of this tank.
Yes. Well, starting on the first day, it was leaking molasses. Now,
Was it slower?
slowly, like
Yeah.
dripping.
So maybe that's where slower than molasses comes
They
from.
were like, people would like stand and watch and be like, that molasses is so slow.
Molasses.
Stick their finger in the molasses.
Well, they did.
Like you would dip your finger in and go, it's molasses.
Yes, that's what they did. Okay, so
Tell us.
after the disaster, parts of the tank were actually tested, and it was proven that, yeah, it was shitty construction. Aside from like the construction of the tank, there was also a little bit of chemistry involved, and it was this perfect storm that created this explosion of the tank that caused this molasses flood. Another chemical thing going on, there was carbon dioxide production that could have raised the internal pressure inside of the tank from fermentation. I don't know what fermentation is, but it's like when things get all fermented.
Yeah, it's like
Kombucha.
kombucha.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
So you had like this whole kombucha moment going on inside of this molasses tank. There was a lot of temperature shifts that week. It went from like 2 degrees to 41 degrees. They also had imported molasses, I think, from Puerto Rico or an area that was like really warm.
Okay.
So they put the warm molasses in with the cold molasses. And voila, you have like a fucking shit show going on inside of this tank. You have like
Molasses is
you have like temperature expansion, chemistry crap. It's it's overcrowded and it's shittily made. It should also be noted that the tank had been filled up to capacity only 8 times in its existence.
How long was it standing before this flood?
I'm going to say less than 5 years.
Okay.
The tank being full all the time was not really like a thing. They never were like, oh, it's full. Like, let's study it.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's getting low. Put another 1 million gallons in.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It should also be noted that the tank was never tested for safety things. There was never like a tank audit. There was never a safety test where you would fill it up with water to check for leaks. People in the town and like the local surrounding area, they would hear groaning noises from the tank all the time.
Like that? Like groaning? Like,
Yeah.
Or like, or no, like, like what was it? What was that movie? The Grudge.
You all have 7 days now.
I thought that was The Ring.
That was the ring.
You're right.
Now with like the leaky molasses, the tank would leak so often that local town folk would go to the tank with empty jars and collect molasses out of the tank. So they would be like, they would take their cup and they would like hold it up to the thing and be like, ooh, free molasses.
I could just picture like little kids playing outside. Like, what are we gonna do today to get into trouble? Let's go lick some molasses from the leak. Exactly.
Wait, like raindrops.
Like instead of like catching raindrops on, like opening your mouth and catching raindrops on your tongue, it's like, let's open our mouth and catch some molasses drops.
The local town folk, they knew they can get free molasses. So
Free molasses, everybody. Let's go back to 1919, Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, I can't wait.
So, how do you think the Purity Distilling Company handled this?
I
Not
think that
at
they
all.
probably like just tried to push it under the table.
They tried to push the molasses
like,
under the table.
I think that they tried to like put the blame on someone else.
You know what color molasses is?
Isn't it brown?
It's brown.
Like a dark brown.
It's a dark brown.
Did they say it was like a sewage leak?
No. So instead of dealing with the leakage, they decided to simply paint the thing.
Stop.
Yeah,
Brown.
to paint the tank brown, so that way the
Oh my
leaky molasses would just
God.
blend in with the color, and everyone would be fooled.
Oh.
Great.
So if you are on a sinking ship, you don't even worry. Just like paint
it blue.
paint
over the hole.
Paint over the hole.
You'll be okay.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's how they fixed the problem. Also in 2014, an investigation applied modern engineering analysis and concluded that the steel was half as thick as it should have been in order to hold the molasses. And also, this is really important because it comes up a little bit later, the rivets of the tank were incredibly weak.
Well, that's what happens when you make it with tin foil.
Yeah.
And spit and glue.
And spit and glue.
So 2 days before the disaster, like I said, warmer molasses was added to the tank, reducing the viscosity of the liquid. When the tank collapsed, the fluid was released. As it was released, it instantly started to cool off, making it thicker.
Okay. So kind of like hardened.
Hardened. Have you ever seen The Blob? Or are you
Yeah.
familiar with The Blob? It's sort of like that.
Yeah.
It was like a blob in Boston.
Molasses black.
The molasses blob.
Also, a study conducted by Harvard concludes that as the molasses cooled and thickened quickly through the streets, it made it incredibly difficult to free the victims, causing many people to suffocate inside of the thickened liquid.
Oh my God.
The fault lies in a combination of just poor construction, temperature changes, chemistry, all coming together to create this perfect storm of a molasses explosion in the tank. We're going to talk about the flood now because this is where it gets a little more morbid and gruesome.
Yes. We love morbid and gruesome
do.
here at Bizarre Buffet.
So we understand what molasses is and the tank problem. So the flood. All of this took place at 529 Commercial Street. The molasses tank that stood 50 feet tall and 90 feet in diameter, containing 2.3 million gallons of molasses, explodes at 12:30 in the afternoon. Witnesses reported that they felt the ground shake and they heard a roar as the tank collapsed.
Molasses.
A lot of people also thought they heard the sound of machine guns, but
I'm trying to make
like-
you close your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, close your eyes and just imagine that you're in Boston, Massachusetts in 1919.
Yeah. Get some molasses if you have it
Well,
in your cupboard.
do you know what that noise actually was?
The rivets.
It was the rivets
bouncing off.
flying off. Because of the buildup and pressure inside of the tank and the density of the molasses, it was basically 40% thicker than water. When it released at a speed of 35 miles per hour with a tidal wave of molasses being 25 feet tall.
Wow.
The force of this 25-foot tall wave going 35 miles an hour was strong enough to completely disrupt plate girders of this elevated railroad, tipping a streetcar off the train tracks. Nearby buildings were completely swept off of their foundations and crushed, and several blocks were flooded with molasses on an average of about 3 feet.
Oh.
Now, the Boston Post did cover this at the time, and there's this quote from someone that witnessed this, and it's really well worded and graphic. It says, molasses, waist deep, covered the street and swirled and bubbled around the wreckage. Here and there struggled a form, whether it was an animal or human being, it was really impossible to tell. Only an upheaval, a thrashing about in the sticky mess, showed where any life was. Horses died like so many flies on fly paper. The more they struggled, the deeper in the mess they were ensnared. Human beings, men, women, suffered likewise.
Wow.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
The funeral smelled great, though.
Yeah.
It probably did. It probably smelled good for days.
Years. Till today, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
Let's go to Boston, Massachusetts.
lick the
So,
sidewalks.
Aside from
It's like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory when you go into when the doors open.
Yeah.
And
You're like-
you enter the candy room.
you're like,
And they're licking the walls and shit.
Now, aside from all this molasses flood stuff, a lot of people were actually picked up by the rush of air from the explosion.
So like they kind of like went flying.
They went flying, yeah.
Holy shit.
Debris went all over the place. Allegedly, also a truck was picked up and hurled into the Boston Harbor.
I wonder if it's still there.
Oh, we should
It
go
could
look.
be.
We can go scuba diving. I just got to get my license first to do that. Don't you have to get a license to do that? Or you have to go through some sort of training? Anyway, continue.
I'm sure you have to go to school or something,
Something like
like
that.
some sort of certification.
Yeah, I'll do it.
One thing that's really sad about this, a man watched his 10-year-old son from the window of their home. He was playing kind of in front of the tank when this happened.
Oh, shit.
So he saw his child completely get engulfed by this molasses wave. So the father immediately like ran out amongst the chaos, searching for his son for hours and obviously returning home.
Do you know what
without him.
I kind of picture like through all of this? You know the game Candyland, right? You know the character, like the big chocolate blob?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yes.
what I picture, like taking over the town.
After this disaster, what comes next? The cleanup.
Oh, God. Who do you call to clean that up?
Yeah.
Ghostbusters?
Probably.
Well, this had become a waist-deep, sticky mess for quite some time. And outside of the initial disaster area, the surrounding area was quickly covered with molasses due to people's footsteps and spreading the molasses around Boston. So people were tracking this shit all over the city.
Like, again, it smells good.
Yeah.
Anyone who's been to Boston recently,
Yeah.
if you can, report back to us if it's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
smelling city. Does it smell good?
If you live in Boston, I want you to tell us, do you have an unexplainable odor of molasses that you've been wondering, why do I smell molasses?
Yeah.
And now you've discovered why
Why
you
do I
smell
smell
molasses?
sugar?
Yeah, let us know.
Another morbid fact is that it took them a while to be able to identify the dead bodies due
Well, I
to
would
the
assume
liquid.
so, yeah.
In order to clean it up, they had to use salt water and sand. A lot of like power
That like
washing.
sandblasted.
How long
Yeah.
did it
Oh,
take for this
shit.
cleanup to happen?
It took months. I don't know if it took years per se, but it definitely took a few months. Several hundred people had contributed to the effort. As they contributed to the effort, they just kept spreading like the stickiness. It's like stepping in dog shit.
Yeah.
And just like,
Or it's like when you mop,
it.
you have to mop a certain way so you don't keep stepping on the
Exactly.
mopping
Yeah.
part that's clean. Like that's a nightmare.
yeah. So from that, a lot of people were killed, injured, a lot of homes were ruined. And another sad thing is that a lot of people that lost their homes, they had children, they could not provide shelter for their children, so their children were taken to orphanages. So just from a molasses flood, a lot of families were actually displaced, and it's something like you wouldn't think about, but
No, you wouldn't.
It happened. So today, right?
Way to make it dark.
I know.
Ew.
Well, like I gotta give a little heart. I gotta be like a Sarah McLachlan sometimes.
I will remember molasses.
That's the one with the animal commercial.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
no,
no.
you cry.
In the arms of molasses.
Yeah. After this tragedy, the tank was not rebuilt. So
I would think
That's
so.
a good thing.
stop clutching our pearls here. Currently, the spot where the tank used to be is
Is there
now
a plaque?
Yes.
Good.
There is a
Good.
plaque.
There better be.
So, but currently the spot where the tank used to be is now the site of Langon Park. The only remains is a simple green plaque at the entrance that commemorates the disaster. The plaque reads as the following. On January 15th, 1919, a molasses tank at 529 Commercial Street exploded under pressure, killing 21 people. A 40-foot wave of molasses buckled the elevated railroad tracks, crushed buildings, and inundated the neighborhood. Structural defects in the tank combined with seasonably warm temperatures contributed to the disaster. So basically the plaque is the entire episode of Bizarre Buffet that we just had. In 2019, for the 100th anniversary of this tragedy, a ceremony was held in remembrance on the site. Where this massive tank once stood is now a baseball field where Bostonians play.
Are they called the molasses?
The molasses.
The Molassi.
The molasses.
Well, this is kind of strange. Okay. So at this ceremony, they were like, okay, let's use ground penetrating radar to truly identify the exact location where this tank stood.
What?
Apparently, a concrete slab base that was like on the base of the tank still remains in place, and it's 20 inches below the surface of the baseball diamond. Just
Whoa.
20 inches is like this piece of structure that no one knows, which is kind of odd.
All right.
I want to go there. Let's dig.
Let's go.
Let's start digging. It's only 21 inches, and
Excavation time.
the attendees of the ceremony stood in a circular formation, marking where the tank once stood, and recited the 21 names of the people that died in the tragedy. Now, till this day, sometimes you can still smell the sweet scent of molasses.
Oh, that sweet, sweet molasses death.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that is
the molasses flood me, baby.
The Molasses Massacre.
Oh, wow. The Molasses Massacre. This
Wow,
episode-
Mark, that was really
Wow.
great.
That was
Thank
a
you.
sweet episode.
Sweet.
Sweet, no pun intended.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Bittersweet.
Yeah, it was a bittersweet journey.
It was.
Sweet.
And
Anyone from Boston, if you can confirm the sweet smell of molasses in the
Yeah.
air, please let us know
Yeah,
by following us, messaging us on Bizarre Buffet on Instagram,
Yep.
on Facebook.
That's right. Patreon. If you want to send us pictures of where you think your molasses flood was, you can follow us. Supporting the show for just $3 a month gets you a lot of extra content. If you want to go for the 10 a month, you'll get even more horny molasses play.
Yes.
And you'll see us covered in it. Just sitting here doing the episode
In
covered in molasses. Yeah.
The walls covered
Just
in molasses.
covered, yeah. And then we're gonna consult some people from Boston on how to clean up our molasses mess
Yeah.
that we made in here.
Yeah.
And yeah, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Patreon. We're on Twitter, YouTube. If you
All
want to see
major
us,
platforms.
hi, we're eating molasses right now, looking at you.
actually, I have vodka in this. I don't know if molasses is in vodka.
I have
Let's
club
say it
soda.
is. It might be in there too.
Oh.
Oh, we're the molasses gang, molasses buffet. So, yeah, fantastic. I love that, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
for that.
until next time, you horny molasses players. My name is Molasses Bluestein.
I'm Boston, Massachusetts.
And I'm the tank.
Oh my God, what a great gang.
Oh my God, fuck Mary James.